Kelsey Mitchell to sign a 1-year Supermax contract with the Indiana Fever, $1.4 million. Kelsey Mitchell, the first player in Indiana Fever history to get a $1 million deal. My initial reaction, folks, 1-year deal is perfect. Run it back with the big three. Kelsey Mitchell will be off the books when it's time to pay Caitlin. We need a splash signing at the 4 or Azura Stevens. Then it's really go time. AB is eligible for the big contract after her 4th year. That's this season.
The ink is barely dry on Kelsey Mitchell's historic Supermax deal. Instead of a celebration, there is pure panic in Indiana. Stephanie White is reportedly fuming, because this massive $1.4 million contract has effectively frozen the team's assets, leaving the roster around Caitlin Clark looking dangerously thin. It was supposed to be a masterstroke to keep the big three together, but now the coaching staff is staring at a depth chart that is mostly blank spaces. By making Mitchell the first player in franchise history to cross the $1 million threshold, the front office has gambled the entire season on a single year of flexibility. The silence from the locker room is deafening, as the rest of the league watches the Fever's championship window potentially slam shut before it even opens.
Eligible for the big contract after her 4th year. That's this season. Caitlin Clark's eligible for the big contract after her 4th year. That's after next season. Kelsey Mitchell will be off the books by then. So what Kelsey Mitchell's making this year won't affect Aaliyah Boston's big payday. What Kelsey Mitchell's making this year won't affect Caitlin Clark's big payday. Now, both of them can get paid earlier if they renegotiate an extension. That could happen. Or after that 4th year, boom. Here's your money, AB. Love it. Boom. Here's your money, CC. Love it. This gives the Indiana Fever flexibility moving.
Let's call a spade here, because the math just does not seem to add up for a team that claims to be all in for a ring. Money Mitch just put them in a ditch, and while she earned every penny of that Supermax, the timing couldn't be worse for the surrounding roster. The Indiana Fever are currently sitting on a 1-year deal that pays out more than any other contract in their history, yet they still have massive holes at the 4 and 5 positions. Stephanie White knows that high-octane offense only gets you so far if you can't stop anyone on the other end. With the Supermax eating up such a huge chunk of the cap, the ability to go out and sign a lockdown defender or a dominant post presence has been severely compromised, leaving Caitlin Clark to carry an even heavier load next season.
Ring. I think a 1-year deal is great. If it was a 4-year deal, let's say it was a 4-year deal, let's say it was a 3-year deal. Okay, well then next year we're paying Kelsey Mitchell over $1 million, and we still got to pay AB. And then what conversation are we having? Oh, how are we going to be able to pay everybody? If we give her a 3-year deal, well, when it's time for Caitlin Clark to get her big contract extension. Oh, well, how are we going to be able to pay Kelsey, AB, and Caitlin? All of this is negated. All of those conversations are swept under the rug. We don't need to visit them. Now, also, let's say we win the chip this year. Let's just say we win the chip this year. We want to run it back.
The front office is trying to sell this as a genius move for future flexibility, but the coaching staff sees it as a missed opportunity to build a dynasty right now. The logic is that by giving Mitchell a 1-year deal, they keep the books clear for when Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark need their massive paydays. Aaliyah is eligible for her big contract after this season, and Caitlin follows right after that. If they had locked Mitchell into a 3-year deal, they would be facing a financial nightmare where they couldn't afford to keep their young superstars. But in the process of protecting the future, they might have sabotaged the present. Stephanie White is reportedly looking for a splash signing at the 4, like an Azura Stevens or a Gabby Williams, but those players aren't going to wait around forever.
Think that the Indiana Fever might have given her a wink moving forward, saying, hey, take this 1-year deal, you'll get the Supermax, and then maybe we'll run it back next year. You'll take a little bit less, but we'll still give you that $1 million contract so we can pay everybody. Something makes me feel that happened as well. I don't want to give the front office too much credit, because if anything, they sure don't deserve the credit. But I do think that this is a solid move going forward. Now, what I would do, call up Gabby Williams. Gabby Williams not expected to re-sign with the Storm. I'd call up Gabby Williams immediately. I wouldn't let Sophie.
The situation with Lexi Hull and Sophie Cunningham is only making matters worse, as the front office seems to be stuck in a holding pattern. Reports suggest that these negotiations are dragging on far longer than they should, preventing the Fever from moving on to other elite free agents. Stephanie White is allegedly reaching a breaking point with this slow play strategy, because every day they wait is a day another top-tier player signs elsewhere. If Hull and Cunningham don't want to accept the offers on the table, the team needs to cut ties and move on immediately. You cannot let role players hold the entire franchise hostage, especially when you have the face of the league in Caitlin Clark waiting for a roster that can actually compete for a title in year 2.
Call up Gabby Williams. Gabby Williams not expected to re-sign with the Storm. I'd call up Gabby Williams immediately. I wouldn't let Sophie and Lexi take any more of my time. Wouldn't do it. If they don't already have behind the door deals just waiting for the actual signing period to take place, if those deals aren't already done, I'm not wasting my time anymore. Hey, Gabby! Yeah, come on. Let's ride out. That's what I'm doing. Now, there's rumors Alana Smith might go back to the Lynx since the Lynx swung and missed on Nneka Ogwumike. We're going to get into that a little bit later. But Azura Stevens is still out there.
There is a growing theory that the Fever gave Mitchell a wink-wink deal to get this one-year contract signed. The idea is that she takes the Supermax now to maximize her earnings, and then next year she signs a longer deal for less money to make room for Caitlin and Aaliyah's extensions. It sounds great in a boardroom, but it's a massive risk in the real world of professional sports. What if Mitchell gets injured? What if another team offers her even more next summer? Stephanie White has to coach the team she has today, not the team the front office hopes to have in 2026. Right now, that team is missing the veteran grit and defensive identity needed to survive the gauntlet of the WNBA playoffs, and the clock is ticking on the remaining free agent pool.
That's on them. But I want to win a championship. And especially with Kelsey Mitchell signing a one-year deal, it's clear we're all in now. While Caitlin Clark is on a bargain deal. We need to maximize this year. We can't let you guys hold us up anymore. Sorry. Can't do it. Now there's a funny image floating around of hello Alana Smith coming to Indiana. Again, she might return to the Minnesota Lynx because the Minnesota Lynx failed to get Nneka Ogwumike. But as far as this Kelsey Mitchell goes,
Gabby Williams is the name on everyone's lips, and she is exactly the kind of player Stephanie White is desperate to add to this rotation. She is not expected to re-sign with the Storm, and her defensive versatility would be the perfect complement to Caitlin Clark's offensive brilliance. The Fever need to be on the phone with her agent every single hour until a deal is done. They cannot afford to let her slip through their fingers while they dither over backup guards. If the Fever are truly America's team now, they need to start acting like it by using their massive commercial appeal to lure players like Gabby. Every sponsor in their back pocket should be offered as a spokesperson opportunity to sweeten the deal and bypass the hard salary cap restrictions.
You could do that too. You have Caitlin Clark. You have all the sponsors in your back pocket ready to say, yes, Gabby Williams, you could be the face of our company. Yes, Azura Stevens, you could be a spokesperson for our company. We have that war chest. We need to use that war chest. Come on, Indiana. Get it together. In other free agency news, we got Marina Mabrey and Brittany Sykes, both signing 2-year max contracts. That backcourt is going to be all offense, minimal defense, and going to shoot a combined 35% from the field and 29% from...
The news out of Toronto and Dallas is only adding to the pressure cooker in Indiana, as other teams are loading up on talent. Marina Mabrey and Brittany Sykes both just signed 2-year max contracts to create a backcourt that is going to be a nightmare to defend. Even if their defense is questionable, that kind of scoring power is going to give the Fever fits if they don't find a way to upgrade their own perimeter defense. Meanwhile, Eriko Gunbowl signed a 7-figure, multi-year deal with the Wings, proving that teams are willing to spend big to keep their stars. Stephanie White is watching these moves happen across the league and wondering why the Fever are still waiting for the phone to ring, while the elite talent is being snatched up by the competition.
Marina Mabrey and Brittany Sykes, both signing 2-year max contracts. That backcourt is going to be all offense, minimal defense, and going to shoot a combined 35% from the field and 29% from three. Not sure what they're doing in Toronto, but good luck to you. Alyssa Thomas expected to re-sign with the Mercury. Onyeka Ogwumike going back to Los Angeles. She took the meeting with Minnesota. Cheryl Reeves didn't impress her. She went back to LA. Arike Ongabawale.
Azura Stevens is another critical piece that could save this roster from mediocrity, but the Fever are moving at a snail's pace. Stephanie White needs a starting lineup that can actually run with Caitlin and Aaliyah, without being a liability on the boards. A lineup of Clark, Mitchell, Williams, Boston, and Stevens would be a championship favorite on day one. That is the delusional fan's dream, but it's also a blueprint for success that the front office seems to be ignoring. Instead of chasing these game changers, they are stuck in a cycle of what if regarding players who haven't proven they can win at the highest level. The frustration in the building is palpable, as the opportunity to build a super team around Caitlin Clark is slipping away. That we have to talk about the Atlanta Smith rumors, because that is a situation that could turn ugly very fast. There was a lot of hope that she would land in Indiana, but now it looks like she might head back to the Minnesota Lynx after they failed to land Onyeka Ogwumike. If the Fever lose out on a talent like Smith because they were too busy worrying about Lexi Hull's contract, it will be a catastrophic failure for the front office. Stephanie White knows that you don't win rings by playing it safe, you win by being aggressive and taking what you want. The Lynx are hungry and desperate, and if the Fever don't step up their game, they are going to find themselves losing out on every single secondary target they had on their board. The reality is that while Caitlin Clark is on a bargain rookie deal, the Indiana Fever have a golden window that most franchises would kill for. They have the most popular player in the world earning a fraction of her actual value, which should mean they have a massive war chest to spend on everyone else. But by dumping so much into Mitchell's one-year deal, they've created a situation where they are still penny pinching in other areas. Stephanie White is reportedly baffled by the lack of urgency. This isn't the time to be conservative, this is the time to burn the boats and go all in. If they don't maximize this season, they are wasting one of the most valuable years of Caitlin's career, and that is something the fans will never forgive. Look at what is happening in Atlanta with Naz Hillman and the rest of the Dream roster. They are building a solid squad with Jordan Canada, Alyssa Gray, and Ryan Howard. They even managed to bring back Hillman after many expected the Fever to make a move for her. It feels like every time a viable player becomes available, the Fever are just a step behind, or too preoccupied with their own internal drama. Stephanie White is a winner who expects her front office to match her intensity, but right now it feels like they are playing checkers, while the rest of the league is playing high-stakes chess. The Dream aren't scared of Caitlin Clark, and they are building a roster specifically designed to physicalize and frustrate her. The pressure on general manager Amber Cox and Kelly Krauskopf is reaching an all-time high, as the fan base begins to realize the roster is still incomplete. They have the big three back, which is great for marketing and jersey sales, but it doesn't solve the glaring issues in the paint. Stephanie White is the one who has to stand on the sidelines and watch her team get out-rebounded because they don't have enough size. She's the one who has to explain why the defense is a sieve. If the front office doesn't get her the tools she needs, this season could end in a massive disappointment that stalls the momentum of the entire franchise. You can't just rely on Caitlin's logo threes to save you every single night. There is also the looming threat of the New York Liberty, who are always in the conversation for every major free agent. They have the resources and the location to attract anyone they want. If the Fever don't act decisively to secure players like Monique Billings or De'Erica Hamby, those players will end up in New York or Vegas, making the road to a championship even steeper. Stephanie White has been around this league long enough to know that if you aren't getting better, you are getting worse. Standing pat with the same roster that struggled for consistency last year is a recipe for a first-round exit. The Fever need to join the big leagues and start making moves that actually scare the top-tier contenders. Kelsey Mitchell's contract is a double-edged sword that could either be the key to a championship or the reason the team falls apart. On one hand, she is an elite scorer who takes the pressure off Caitlin. On the other hand, her massive salary cap hit for a single year makes it nearly impossible to sign a fourth star. Stephanie White is reportedly trying to find a middle ground, but the options are dwindling by the hour. The front office needs to stop waiting for the perfect deal and start making the necessary ones. If that means overpaying slightly for a defensive specialist to protect Caitlin, then that is what they have to do. The cost of doing nothing is far higher than the cost of a slightly inflated contract. The fans are already starting to turn on the front office, and for good reason. They were promised a championship-caliber team around their new superstar, but instead they are getting a roster that looks suspiciously like last year's underachieving squad. Stephanie White is caught in the middle, trying to manage expectations while knowing her roster is missing several key ingredients. If the Fever don't make a splash signing in the next few days, the narrative of this off-season will shift from excitement to frustration. You can only sell the future flexibility line for so long before people realize that the present is being ignored. Caitlin Clark deserves a roster that can compete at the highest level right now. We also have to consider the psychological impact on the players themselves. When Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark see the team struggling to sign veteran help, it sends a message about the organization's commitment to winning. Stephanie White is reportedly doing her best to keep the locker room focused, but players talk. They see who is signing where, and they know when their team is being outmaneuvered. If the Fever want to keep their young stars happy long-term, they need to show that they can build a winning environment around them. Paying Kelsey Mitchell is a good start, but it cannot be the end of the conversation. The roster needs more than just 3 stars, it needs a functional, balanced rotation. The move to bring back Mitchell on a Supermax was clearly a priority, but it shouldn't have been the only priority. Stephanie White is reportedly frustrated that the team didn't have a plan B or C ready to go as soon as the Mitchell deal was finalized. Now they are scrambling to find value in a market that is quickly drying up. Players like Monique Billings and De'Erica Hamby would bring a level of toughness and veteran leadership that this young core desperately needs. If the Fever miss out on them, they are going to be relying on unproven rookies or bench players to play heavy minutes in high-pressure situations. That is not how you build a championship contender in the modern WNBA. It is time for the Indiana Fever to stop playing it safe and start using their unique position as the league's biggest draw. They have the sponsors, they have the eyes, and they have the money. Stephanie White is ready to lead this team to the promised land, but she can't do it with one arm tied behind her back. The front office needs to get on the phone and make something happen, even if it means being aggressive and ruffle some feathers. The days of being a lottery team are over. They need to start acting like a powerhouse that dictates the terms of free agency, rather than waiting for the crumbs left by the Liberty and the Aces. The roster is empty, and the clock is ticking. The gossip in coaching circles is that Stephanie White is looking for a specific type of grit that this team currently lacks. She wants players who aren't afraid to do the dirty work, while Caitlin and Kelsey handle the scoring. But those players aren't cheap, and they aren't easy to find. By prioritizing the Supermax for Mitchell, the Fever have made it much harder to find that blue-collar talent. Every dollar counts in a league with a hard cap, and the front office's decision to put all their eggs in the big 3 basket has left them with very little room for error. If one of those 3 goes down, the entire season is over, because there is no veteran depth to fill the void. Let's talk about the missed opportunity with Nneka Ogwumike. The fact that she even took a meeting with Minnesota shows that she was looking for a new challenge. The Fever should have been at the front of that line with a massive offer and a vision for her to play alongside Aaliyah Boston. Instead, she went back to LA, and the Fever were left empty-handed. Stephanie White is reportedly wondering why the team isn't more aggressive in pursuing these franchise-altering talents. If you have the chance to pair a legend like Nneka with a future legend like Caitlin, you do whatever it takes to make it happen. The failure to even get in the room with her is a damning indictment of the current front office strategy. The upcoming weeks will define the Stephanie White era in Indiana before it even truly begins. If she is forced to coach a roster that is top-heavy and lacks defensive identity, the results will likely be the same as they were before she arrived. The front office needs to realize that the flexibility they are so proud of won't matter if the team is losing games and the fans are losing interest. Caitlin Clark is a once-in-a-generation talent, and wasting even 1 year of her prime is an inexcusable mistake.